Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. Back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, no, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FPV News with JB and ItsBlunty. Here with you on a Tuesday night. How you doing, Blunty?
Good, Joshua. How's it going?
I'm doing really good. Hang on, I think you are a little bit quieter than you. Let me turn you up slightly. Make sure everybody can hear your sonorous voice.
This is a test. This is a 1-2
Yes.
test.
I don't know. It's usually the same, but anyway. Welcome to the news, guys. The FPV News. We are going to be talking about all the things that... All the things? All? Probably not all. Some.
A decent number.
All the ones we could find. Things that happened in FPV in the news this week. Thank you guys so much for being here. Just a quick moment. I'll let you guys, as the doctor says, I'll let you guys trickle in to the arena.
Come.
I knew you had a doctor disrespect impression. Oh, trickling on in. I got your comments here. I got you in the Discord here, patrons as well. Phantom FPV, I got you in the chat. Good seeing you, my friend. And Blunty, we have an accusation of clickbait already in the chat, which here's the question. One of our news items could arguably be, it's not it's like, when Pawel says that FPV is dead, maybe you could argue that's a clickbaity title because it's like, it's just so sensational, but we're not clickbaiting. We're just reporting on someone else's clickbait. But is that clickbait?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about. Well, we're
here to talk about whether he's right or wrong, whether we agree or disagree. I wonder which we'll do. We'll just agree. We'll be like, yeah, no, he's right. That's all we have to say. That's why we put it last, the rant.
Yes.
What else have we got on the schedule for this week, Blunty?
All right. So this week, we're going to talk about Caddx has a new DJI camera. the Polar. Nick Burns has a video out about that, and a couple other people have been talking about it, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah, you're always trying to work puns into our titles. You put can you bear the downsides?
That story might get grisly.
You sure you're not a dad?
All right. I am not currently.
Is anyone, let's face it, guys, is anyone sure they're not a dad? Okay, go ahead. Please continue.
All right. So RedCat has announced acquiring Teal Drones. So we'll talk a little bit about that. They saw a stock increase.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk a little bit about the registration for recreational drone users. If you're new or you logged into Dronezone recently, you might have seen a new inventory, and that's not a legal requirement. So we'll discuss what it is and what to do with it.
Okay.
The FAA has listed out some requirements for the CBOs in a draft letter, and they're asking for comments from everyone. So we'll talk a little bit about that and maybe how you can provide a comment, because they are looking for them.
This is a big deal because the CBOs right now, it's just pretty much assumed that the AMA is going to be like the only CBO. I mean, no one has said that for sure, but like I'm sure we all in FPV would like that not to be true, and would like Flight Test to be a CBO or maybe FPV Freedom Coalition. So if that all makes you go, wait, tell me more, stick around.
Yeah. All right. BetaFPV is announcing new Express ELRS products, so we'll go over those, new AIO and kit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you trust BetaFPV with your long range receiver link?
Tmotor has a contest that's looking for young pilots for free stuff, and it's not about your flight ability. It's just a contest entry. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that, but that's a pretty neat thing they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was skeptical about it at first, but when I read about it, I was like, oh, this is actually just a really nice thing they're doing for the kids. So
we've got a community spotlight this week. We have the longest flight so far that we've seen on 1S. So we'll take a look at that. Pretty cool flight.
Mm-hmm. How long? Tell me in the chat. I mean, if you've seen it already, then that's cheating. How long do you think the longest flight on 1S was? Tell me in the chat.
Researchers have developed a method for meteorite recovery by drone AI searching algorithms. And we'll take a look at a research paper that reviews that. And last but not least, Pawel says FPV is dead. And then we'll also talk about Bruce XJET has given his take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that as well.
Okay, and we'll give our take, of course, whether we think FPV is dead. I think Pawel made some points that are actually legit, but as you might expect, I'm not going to just completely agree with everything he said. Tasty Shrimp has told us about the transitive property of clickbait, which basically, I guess, implies that when clickbait touches one thing, everything that comes from it is also clickbait. We got people putting their guess for the longest flight. Some people are putting distance. Some people are putting time. Interesting. It's interesting the way you think about it. And we also have a Terminal Insanity who says, now you're engaging in stay bait, which is listing interesting things to make me stay. Hey, that could do a lot worse. We're gonna, before we get into the first news item, though, I need to say that the news is going to be on a small break. I have a trip coming up. I'm going to be out of town starting this coming weekend. I'm going to be going to Atlanta to see the Flow State film with about 140 other people who got to come, and then I'm going to be on another trip for about 2 weeks until the end of July. So rather than try and fail to live stream from a hotel room, we're just going to put it on hold. So we'll be back after the 1st of August. But I want to let you guys know about that, because I know what will you do without us? Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to hear a bunch of people still asking, but that's okay. At least you guys know who are here. So.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to read this super chat, and then we'll get into the news. Thank you, Falcon FPV, for $20. Big super chat. Thanks for all the help through email with the OSD on my Apex stack and all your helpful videos you put out. If I remember right, he was on the wrong UART. We got him sorted out. If you guys would like to pay for beard oil for blunt, no, I'm joking. You can hit that $ down below. Hit that $ right down below in the chat. Leave a super chat. We'll read the super chat at some point before the end of the stream. Usually don't interrupt the news for super chats, but let's go ahead, Blunty, with the very first item, a new camera from Caddx.
Yeah. So looks like Nick Burns has been the first one to put out a video about the new Caddx camera, the Polar. This is and that's the Polar, basically the Polar Starlight camera, the Polar Vista kit. And this is it seems like this is their new, like, I don't know what you'd call it, like a sort of a mid-range meant for darkness, like starlight shots kind of camera. It seems like the quality is a lot better than something like a Nebula Nano.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to put this footage up, and I want to say, interrupt you there briefly, Blunty, that this footage is YouTube footage, which I am now restreaming. So if you really want to see the footage, go look. The link is in the video description. Go watch Nick Burns' video, and know that still you're not. I mean, this is 4K, so it's probably about as good as he saw in the goggles. But don't just take what I'm showing you. Go ahead, Blunty.
Yeah. So it seems like this is similar to closer to the maybe better than the RunCam Mippy. The RunCam Mippy is looking pretty good in the results that I've seen. And then, moving up to the Nebula Pro, probably somewhere between those. But it is looking pretty good. I think this footage is not bad. But the big concern here is going to be that, unfortunately, for whatever reason, this camera is only going to be 60 frames a second, high quality mode, 16:9, and only 2 adjustable camera settings. So instead of no adjustable settings like a Nano, this will actually have brightness and contrast adjustable, but otherwise will be similar in feature set to something like a Nano.
Well, that's why, for me, there are several reasons why, for me, the Nebula Nano was a total no-go. And one was just the overall image quality, which I thought was pretty poor. It had a plastic lens, I'm pretty sure is why it had some ghosting, haloing fuzziness. But the other, and this one seems to have decent image quality. I still don't think it's as good as a Nebula Pro, just based on, I actually have this camera. I haven't tested it yet, so Nick Burns beat me to the punch. Shocker. But the other thing, like you say, is that both this camera and the Nebula Nano are stuck in high quality mode. Well, isn't that a good thing? No, because they're just low. It's high latency. It's like 45 milliseconds latency, whereas the low latency mode gets you down to 25, 30 milliseconds latency. And having just flown the GEP-RC Smart 3.5 this week, it has a Nebula Nano, and I was reminded just how it's weird because it's only like 10 or 15 milliseconds of latency. It's so bad.
I always feel like something's broken. If I fly with it, I'm like, something's wrong. What happened? Fly it back, and then I'm like, oh, there's a Nano on this quad. Yeah, it's always like pretty striking to me. I agree. I would not have thought it's so bad, but I expect the reason is because it's really fighting hard to keep the video. So instead of just 43, it's like 43 to 48 to 40 to 43 to 40, like it's like floating.
Yeah, I actually wonder whether, because I'm sure you're seeing the average there. And I actually wonder, when they do video game frame rates, they do not just the average frame rate, but they also do like the slowest 1% to catch spikes.
Yeah.
So if your average latency is 40 milliseconds, but you occasionally have a spike to 100 milliseconds, that's going to kill you. Whereas when I fly with the Vista camera, sometimes I see 35 or more 40 milliseconds of latency if I'm at the edge of range, but it still feels better than a Nebula Nano. And we can expect that this Polar camera is going to be the same because it's also locked into high quality mode. So to me, I would say, well, this is a no-go, but in this day and age, where are you going to find a Vista in stock? Where are you going to find a Nebula Pro in stock? There's just, if you want to fly DJI, that's it. So I guess I take this one.
Yeah. I think if this is the only camera you have a choice of, this seems pretty solid. If you want to skip ahead real quick, maybe, or I don't know if you showed it at all, but the nighttime. The nighttime footage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he actually shows the Pro before, the Pro before the new Polar here.
So here's the Nebula Pro. Hang on, it's loading. It's because it's in 4K. It's not happy. Here's the Pro. Oh, yeah. Wow. It's Paris at night. Oh, there we go. This is the Nebula Pro. It's like I would not at all consider this to be flyable. You can barely see So like right there in front of his garage, you can kind of see the ground, but like you really couldn't fly this very easily. And now here's the Polar, and this like it's clearly better. I'm not sure if it's flyable in this dark condition, but it's still clearly better.
Yeah, it's quite a few shades of brightness higher. I'd be interested to see what the Nebula Nano looks like compared to this. Just because I know the Nebula Nano does pretty good at night, especially compared to like the stock DJI cameras.
Yeah, Mad Fiction, this is not for sale yet, for what it's worth. This Starlight is an interesting approach to take. It's an easy way to differentiate your camera, right? Because you just make a high sensitivity sensor or crank the gain or whatever, and then you can at least have something to differentiate yourself. Yeah. So, all right, Caddx. Well, I have this camera. I'll be testing it out, and obviously Nick Burns has already done a great job. So, but I'll be putting my own spin on it, and we'll see. Keep trying, Caddx. Why does it not? Nobody has the frickin' that little chip on it that lets you actually do the low latency mode and stuff, right? Why?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I'm not sure why this camera doesn't have it. I got to be honest. I expected this camera to have that chip because Caddx
Well, is it
has
expensive?
No issues. Yeah, I cannot tell you. I don't know if they're paying like a fee per camera or if it's a hard chip to get because of the shortage or what exactly the issue is.
Okay.
I have heard rumors also through the grapevine that there is a sequel to the Nebula Pro coming out. I don't know. I think the issues are sourcing on the Nebula Pro, and my fear is that that's going to be the chip that's the issue they have sourcing, but I don't know anything.
Just
I've actually heard.
Just listen, Caddx. Just don't release another camera without low like an actual DJI camera with low latency mode like the Nebula Pro.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool. This is cool, and I agree that it's better than the Nebula Nano. So I guess I should be thankful, but also I'm kind of annoyed. So there you go. That's my take. Okay. Adam FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. No message, just a $5 super chat. Next up, Blunty, RedCat. RedCat's going to acquire another company, and it is actually consistent with the sort of business plan that we have been seeing them sort of seem to lay out. This time it is Teal Drones.
Yeah, so Teal Drones is a US-based company, and they're one of, I believe, 5 companies that got the bid for DoD for like further progress and investment in like the drone sector. Yeah, as approved small unmanned aerial systems vendors for the US government, so they're only one of 5. Yeah, so Teal is going to be making drones, it sounds like, for the DoD, and making drones for what it sounds like are like secure sources, and RedCat wants to jump into that and build it into the supply chain. So
yeah, one question that a lot of people in the chat were asking is, where is RedCat getting this money? And we know from this press release that this was a stock only transaction, so there was no cash that traded hands. It's just the Teal founders got RedCat stock and the RedCat founders got Teal stock, or I don't actually know how these things work, but it is, though. RedCat did their IPO on the NASDAQ, and they were supposedly valued at like 16 million. Does that mean they actually have $16 million in stock, not cash, right? They have stock worth $16 million.
No, I think I saw there was like liquid of $500,000 or something like that.
Okay, yeah, they don't have that. So they're doing all these. They did the same thing with Fat Shark. Fat Shark was valued, I believe, at $7 million at the time of acquisition, and it was also a stock transaction. So basically, this is just a whole bunch of companies shuffling paper around. Nobody's shelling out cash. It still is meaningful, though, because if you're the owner of Teal and the owner of RedCat comes and says, hey, I'll give you half my company if you give me half of your company, or something like that. Like, you're not going to just do that if you don't think there's any value there. So somebody values RedCat in a very real way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where this all goes. But I know it's definitely drove their stock up. I think peaked at like $6 today.
Let's see. Yeah, that's a great announcement for the stock. What are we at? 1 day. Oh yeah, it jumped up. It really jumped up. Look, here's today's RedCat holdings when they made this announcement. It went way up. That's really cool. How's our 1 month? Oh no, it's looking real good. Okay, so we're at not quite a 6 month high, but certainly a 1 month high. That's it still remains to be seen. Whoops, wrong scene there. It still remains to be seen what they're going to do, what their actual product that they will sell to customers is. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Military contracts, presumably. I mean, that's a great thing to get into. That's just, I'm not saying it's free money, but it is money. You got to work for it. But so maybe Rotorite, go and fly on a military base. All right, next up. What's next, Blunty?
All right. So registration for recreational drone users basically is now making you add a drone to inventory. And that is not a legal requirement. Most of you who will know the actual law will know that as a recreational drone user, you don't have to list your drones. You just have to put your registration number on all your drones, and then those are good to fly recreationally. And so basically, they changed the sign-up process. So if you go in to sign up as a new user, you've never signed up for your $5, you've never paid your money and signed up as a recreational drone user. Now when you go in, they're going to ask you specifically to add a drone to your inventory. And unfortunately, I've got an imager link there just to show, but basically there's no way to skip that and get through that. So right now, even though it's not a legal requirement, you will have to add a drone to your inventory to continue. And essentially what you're going to have to do is, you'll get through the first part, and then you'll go, go to add a drone to inventory, and it's going to make you do it. So you can try to skip it or like skip info or whatever, but basically what you're going to do is you're going to enter as few fields as possible. So you're going to say, no, my device doesn't have remote ID. You're going to tick home built. You're going to say, no, I don't have a serial number. And then you're just going to type home built in those two spots with the red text there, just so you can get through that. And that's going to get you through this requirement because it's not legally required to do this. So
yeah, what I've always done, I mean, I've had to do, as a 107 operator, I've had to register individual drones for a while. And what I've always done is I just put like the name of I put Catalyst Machine Works Banggood as the make and manufacturer. I'm like, whatever. And then for serial number, it's just not, not applicable. And so now 107, now recreational pilots will have to do the same thing, even though you're not getting any unique registration number for each one of your drones. So. Yeah.
Yep. And then I did reach out to Vic Moss, who contacted the FAA for me, and he just confirmed that, like, yeah, this isn't a legal requirement. You don't have to register every drone. It's just like something that's been added for remote ID. So when it comes out, you'll be able to list all your remote ID drones. It just unfortunately is a requirement to sign up right now, which it really shouldn't be. So.
Right. So you could just put anything there for now. They're just getting ready for remote ID.
Yeah, go ahead. T-Jenga asks, so can you remove drones from your inventory? You can remove every one but the last one. So as long as you have one drone in inventory, you can remove all the other drones.
Yeah. Okay. So you could just put like a placeholder there. It doesn't really matter. Let's see. Terminal Insanity asks, what happens if you're flying a drone without any registrations? I don't think it's moral to force people to register. So like if you haven't registered and you're over 250 grams, is that right, Blunty? Under 250 grams doesn't have to register for recreational. For 107, it does.
Correct.
Thank you. I don't always get the details 100% right. But then if you're over 250 grams and you're not registered, you're in violation of the law. At that point, I mean, technically they could come fine you. And if you choose to be a conscientious objector to the law, then, I respect that sometimes there are laws that you find immoral and you choose to break them. And part of that is accepting that if you get caught, you will be penalized or punished. And that's what they can do. They can fine you. And they can fine the crap out of you, too.
Yeah. There's not as many people looking for it, but you can drive a car without a license for as long as they find out you don't have a license, or as long as they don't know you don't have a license. So I think it's just kind of up to is anybody ever going to enforce it? Will anybody ever ask for it? All those kind of things. I think this is a really easy one to get. It's $5. Takes about 3 minutes online.
It's $5 period, not $5 per drone. It's just $5 one time.
Yeah. And so they do get a little bit of information from you, but it's certainly less than you would give for your driver's license or ID or most things other people have. So,
yeah. So, yeah, that's your decision. I will say that here's how this plays out in real life. No one cares if you fly without registering your drone, as long as you're not doing something stupid. Okay, at least as of today. The only people who have gotten the FAA's attention have been people who did something so blatant. Like the two people I'm thinking of are Paul Nurkala flew through a train car, into a train car, and underneath a train. And it turns out that DHS, the NTSB, and the FAA are really sensitive about trains. People are like, why? Who cares? Trains carry, like, all kinds of stuff. They're really sensitive about trains. Okay, fine. So his video blew up. He got millions of views. It got reported to the FAA so many times that they were like, okay, we got to go slap this guy. And they fined him. You know what they fined him for at the end of the day?
Flying over a moving vehicle. No, I don't actually know what it is.
He didn't have a 107 at the time.
Oh.
So technically what he got dinged for was not... I should say this is my understanding. I should say this is, this is not necessarily completely factual. My understanding is he didn't get dinged for flying near the train. That was the technicality that they got him on. And my point is that if you are flying without registering your drone, that will be the technicality that they get you on when they decide to get you because you did something stupid and they couldn't ignore you anymore. And like, I've never seen them issue a fine less than a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
There you go. Yeah, don't post it then. Yeah, don't post your shit on YouTube. And, don't... One guy contacted me recently, and he said, hey, I was flying in this field near my work, and I crashed on this building. Well, it turns out it's like a federal building. Do you think they're going to give me my drone back? I'm like, bro, you crashed on top of a federal building? That's good. Like, whether you get you should hope that they, like, keep your drone and never talk to you again, You're
right.
Anyway, so that's your call. But next up, Blunty, another FAA related thing. This time the FAA is deciding what a CBO is. What is a CBO, Blunty?
A community-based organization.
A community-based organization.
Yeah, essentially the idea behind a CBO is supposed to be like a group you join, similar to the idea behind the AMA, who gives you a bunch of rules that you fly under. And because you're part of the CBO and you're like hanging out with them and you're giving training and like all this kind of stuff, right? Then they can fly under your rules, and that's part of the actual guidelines that the FAA has released. Like, one of the rules for recreational users is you must fly under the guidelines of the CBO. So now we have draft rules and guidelines for the CBOs, and the FAA wants your comments on these.
Yeah, so we've got links in the video description to these circulars, which the FAA put out.
Yeah, so it'll actually be the second one on this page.
Okay.
Yeah, or the second one on that page, or that circular there. Either way.
Great. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, and basically this is going to detail like how they're going to handle these CBOs and how they feel like the rules should apply for the CBOs and stuff. A lot of this is going to be based on the law, so there's not things you can change or adjust. But one of the other things I think is interesting, if we go down to 3, let's see where it is. It's going to be 343.
Okay.
And we can see these recommended safety procedures. So these are all going to be procedures that, are only like partially part of the law. So, we could check these and see, like, do these make sense from like a user's standpoint, right? Prohibition on modifying UAS and the carriage of hazardous materials or weapons. Like, obviously we don't want people to carry a weapon. But we want to make sure that, like, the statements those people are making are not going to, like, avoid other attachments or things that we would put on a drone, or other modifications we might make by, like, dropping payloads or doing things for other jobs, what is careless or dangerous behavior, like pre-flight safety, like how many checks should we actually be doing, and like what do our quads need and stuff. There's also guidelines for like the in-flight safety and stuff where I'm not sure if it talks about it in this section, but in another section of this document, they basically discuss and say, if you take your goggles off, you need to be able to fly your drone line of sight. And so they're asking people to be able to fly line of sight. To be able to fly, that's part of one of the CBO rules. And so I know most of us can't fly line of sight, and I think we have to ask ourselves, like, is that a reasonable thing to make people do or not, you know?
Yeah, the reason that this is really important is that, like, right now, the organization that is most likely to be a CBO is the AMA. Whatever the rules are, they're so established. And if they become the only CBO, then everyone who wants to fly legally will need to fly according to AMA safety rules. And there are lots of ways that AMA safety rules don't really jibe with what we do in FPV. And so if, for example, the FPV Freedom Coalition was to be classified as a CBO, they could write safety rules that still meet these requirements, but that allow for things that the AMA doesn't allow you to do. And if you want to be flying legally, you have to be flying according to some CBO's safety rules. You can't just say, well, that's the AMA rules, but that's not realistic. Right. Somewhere out there has to be a CBO who says, these are our rules, you can follow them. And we really want an FPV organization to be one of those.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to like have all these weird rules that like, because most people doing it are planes, like, oh, now we have to have some weird attachment, or we have to like, yeah, have some weird requirement that we hadn't considered before. Yeah, it's just important to check out those things. I know one of the things this document adds, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, you know, we discussed, I think last week or the week before, a lot of people were arguing about the light rule. You know, there's no rule for lights on recreational drones. It's just a CBO rule. And so this rule would change it. So CBOs have to set a 3 statute mile, just like the 107 rule would be. Now, I don't think that's so bad. I think 3 statute miles isn't crazy for lights at night. But if you did, you know, that's something you should reach out to the FAA and let them know, because this is the thing they're collecting comments on.
Well, that's the thing that we're trying to point out, which is that in the video description, in the show notes, there's an email address. I don't know why they thought it would be a good idea to just have you email this person.
Because it's
like,
the
why
government.
Isn't it a web page? This person's going to get exploded with emails. Her inbox. But anyway, they're asking for comments. And it's important that FPV pilots talk about basically, who do you think should be a CBO that isn't the AMA? I mean, if you think it should be the AMA, by all means, but like they're already in the door, really. I mean, you can assume that. So who do you think should be a CBO that represents FPV's interests, and why, and so forth? You can email this person, and be nice. Don't be a dick. But
yeah, I mean, they're just going to delete it if you're mean. So
yeah,
doesn't help anybody.
A whole lot of people are joking about kids jumping on trampolines, people hitting golf balls, people throwing boomerangs. And I get it, but it's worth pointing out that the FAA only regulates aircraft, and one of the definition of an aircraft is that it is guided and it is powered. Okay, so I don't know. Does that mean a glider doesn't count? Like a hand-launched glider doesn't count? I'm not sure about that.
I think if it doesn't have control surfaces, I think is how the rule works. But
is it guided 100%. Or powered?
Yeah, I think it's guided or powered. I'd have to double check.
Right, well, anyway, suffice it to say that a child jumping on a trampoline is neither guided nor powered. Same for a boomerang, same for a golf ball. So that's why those things are not fall under FAA regulation. Anyway, email down in the video description if you want to make your voice heard. Next up, Blunty. Express LRS.
Yes.
Got to talk about Express LRS this week. Happy Model came out with Express LRS receivers, and people said, "Yay, we can buy Express LRS receivers. We don't have to solder them up and flash them ourselves." And then people said, "Happy Model, yeah, your mobile is pretty good, but also sometimes it dies randomly, but mostly it's pretty good." Cool, Happy Model. How do you feel about BetaFPV making a Express LRS receiver?
I mean, it's another company. Hopefully. I'm hoping they'll do okay, but yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest, like, I'm not holding my breath for quality here. I'm hoping they're gonna blow me away, and all of them are gonna be great, and nobody will complain, and then we'll be like, oh snap, this is great. But I cannot like immediately assume that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate to keep harping on BetaFPV like this, but like BetaFPV needs to, they just keep making products that are like good, except that half of them break right out of the box. I mean, maybe not half. Maybe only, I don't know what the percent is. But, so, you know, that's a big ask. It's a big ask. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Yeah,
oh, we got a flight controller with a built-in. Sorry, Blunty, go ahead.
Yeah, either way, I think it's great that there's more people making these receivers and stuff, and making these systems and that sort of thing. Somebody said those receivers, Bobby Bag says those receivers look huge. I think they're actually just nano-sized. And we're just used to seeing now the little Happy Model EP receivers, the 10x10s.
Yeah, these receivers look like they're similar in size to a Crossfire. It says 12x19.
Yeah, so I believe that's a Crossfire Nano.
Yeah, so that we would usually consider that to be quite small, although compared to the Happy Model. I would definitely hesitate to jump on this right out the gate until I knew that they were solid. You know, you buy a tiny whoop from BetaFPV and you fly it, and if it dies on the first flight, you go, oh damn, and maybe you try to get a replacement, but you know, life goes on. But the receiver, you're literally trusting all your aircraft, and I'm just not sure. About that.
Yeah.
BetaFPV. I'm really sorry. I like BetaFPV as a company. They release good products, and I'm like, this is really good, and then people are like, they all died on me, and I'm like, damn it, you let me down again.
Yep.
Okay.
Just unfortunate.
Yeah. Yes. What's next, Blunty? Tell us about this contest from Tmotor.
All right, so I saw this on Facebook. I thought this was cool. I wanted to share it to get some people into this. If you are below 18 years old, or you know a pilot below 18 years old who would be interested in this, have them enter this competition. There's literally just a post you share and then an application form you submit to be entered in this. And if you're below 18 years old, you could win a year of motors, stacks, and props, and it's not based on skill. It's basically based on if you care enough to enter this competition, which I think is pretty cool, because a lot of these things are like, hey, everybody submit videos and we'll pick the best one or whatever. And instead, this is like a, hey, enter, and maybe you can get lucky and you'll have free stuff for a year. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. Anybody under 18? When I first heard about this, I was like, so many of these contests, it's like share our post, subscribe to our Facebook page, subscribe to our Instagram, get 6 friends to comment, and then we will pick one of you who wins. And it's like, this one is actually like, they're like, share the post, no big deal, more people will enter, and then they're just going to randomly select, and it says young pilots, not just pilot, so they're going to pick more than one and give them a year's worth of FPV motor stacks and props. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not asking too much, giving away a lot. So, cool. If you're under 18, by all means, enter it. Let me get a couple super chats out of the way, Blunty, before we go on. We've got a bunch of super chats that have come in. Adam FPV leaves $10 and asks, will the Rotor Risco have the Caddx Polar? Blunty, the Rotor Risco is a non-existent product that my chat likes to troll me about, and I don't care, but I only actually acknowledge it when they leave super chats. So
Fair enough.
We won't have Caddx Polar because it doesn't exist. Stephen Morissette, thanks for €5. A box possibly labeled DJI Air Unit S has been spotted on Instagram in a sponsored French DJI pilot. Any info? I don't have any info about that.
If I remember correctly, this is like an old post that got drug up again. I may be talking about the wrong thing, but if I'm thinking about the right thing, this is actually an old air unit that was for the light bridge system. And it like looks like an air unit. If you can send that to news@fpvknowitall.com, we'll take a look. But I'm like 90% sure or whatever that that's a light bridge. If you Google DJI light bridge and look up the air units for those, see if it looks similar to that picture. That's what I would say.
Okay, good. Jeff Rains in the regular chat asks, do most Part 107s always have a spotter? Realistically, it's a hard rule to always comply with. I always have a spotter, and I always maintain visual line of sight.
Yeah, all
that's my official
are
answer.
Legally required to have a spotter and maintain visual line of sight.
Now, I will say that probably out there are people who don't have a spotter when they fly, and nobody knows and no one cares.
Yeah, just
but
to be clear, it's not just 107.
Recreational pilots should have a spotter too.
Yeah.
I will say, if you're ever on like a job, if you're on a movie set or a commercial set or something, then yeah, everything is done 100% by the book, because you won't get your insurance if you don't. But if you're just flying, you know, in your backyard or something, then probably there are lots of people out there who fly without a spotter. But I would never do that.
Yeah.
I would certainly never admit to doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow the rules to the letter, there's not a lot you're doing with the drone. I'm just going to say that. Because if you think about, like, you know, especially this CBO lays it out a lot more clearly. You know, they say specifically, like, you should be able to take the goggles off and see the drone no matter where you're at in your flight. Because the other guy has to be co-located, your spotter has to be co-located. So, like, it has to be in both of your visual sights. So you can't fly, you're technically not supposed to fly around a building. Like,
Correct.
It's lunatic. You know, it doesn't make sense for most people to, like, comply to. So make your best judgment, do the best things you can, and follow any insurance guidelines for sure.
Yeah. Yep. That's a legit answer.
Yeah. Real quick, Filmic FPV is asking what qualifies as a CBO. So that's literally exactly what we're talking about. Is this document that we shared is the draft for what will qualify as a CBO. So you should review that or review summaries of that. We linked a summary from Drone DJ down in the comments or down in the description as well, I believe. And if you go there, they have a little bit of a summary there. But yeah, that's going to be the rules. So that's what we want to review and make comments on if we don't like them.
Okay.
Cool.
Juan Cruz Fortunati, thank you for 50, I believe, Argentinian pesos. I'm not sure. Regardless, thank you for 50 of them. I want to get an FPV drone to do some kind of exploration while doing overland in my country, Argentina. Okay, I guess I was right. What do you recommend, DJI FPV? Yeah, if you want to do exploration, if you want to do camera tripod in the sky, search and rescue, anything like that, not DJI FPV, but like a DJI Mavic, Mavic Air 2, that is like the only reason to not get that is price. And even if you factor in price, the capabilities of that system, the refinement of that system is so high, like that it may still be the right choice, that you would be giving up so much if you got something cheaper. Yeah, DJI Mavic is just so good at that type of flying. On the flip side, if you want to just do like fun proximity freestyle, then don't get a Mavic, but it's not good for exploration. Finally, we have Jeff Rains. Thank you for $5, Jeff Rains. With and without a Part 107, is it ever actually legal to fly FPV without a spotter? We just talked about it is not. Well, no, it's not. You have to have the quad or the aircraft in visual line of sight, which you have goggles on your face. You can't be doing that, so you must have a spotter.
Yep.
Seems hard to enforce. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in the future it might be, just because like remote ID rules will happen. So if like DJI FPV could use the built-in remote ID rules, not the additive remote ID rules, you might could fly BVLOS with a like a DJI FPV drone or some like actual remote ID integrated drone, because those will be BVLOS. The ones we add will not be, but yeah, just food for thought.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody in the chat. Who was it in the chat? I didn't see. They pointed out that one reason to get the DJI FPV drone over a Mavic is that you can actually use the FPV goggles, which are, you can run a Mavic. I don't know what you can. Can you do a Mavic with the DJI goggles, the pre-FPV goggles? Do they work with today's Mavics?
Racing edition, I think so.
Yeah.
Like DJI goggles racing edition, but I'm not sure if, I don't know if it's like current Mavics or just older Mavics.
Okay.
So that's something you have to check into, like the actual specs on those.
Okay. Finally, so maybe the DJI FPV if you really want to use the goggles. You can use goggles with the DJI Mavic. The goggles RE. At least we think so. We're not sure. If you're not used to the goggles, you could just use a screen, though. All right. And then finally, Reckinson. Thank you for a $5 super chat. He wants to know where to pre-order the Rotorisco. The Rotorisco doesn't exist, so you can't pre-order it anywhere. It's just
Rotorisco.com, of course.
Yeah, naturally. Oh, and hey, everybody, one more piece of news that I need to inject. SL is bored and he's leaving. Thank you for letting us all know. Thanks. Really appreciate you telling us that. You actually typed it twice, just so we'd be sure to not miss it. Everybody, say bye-bye to SL. Later, dude. All right, moving on. What's next, Blunty?
All right, so next we have our community spotlight. We're going to take a look at a flight on a Nano Long Range 1S from Catch 22 Mania. I found this on YouTube. And
Okay.
this is actually a flight with some headwind and stuff, but a lot of people were doing time earlier. So on this one, I pulled the longest distance I could find. And the distance on this one was 4 miles out and 4 miles back. It ended up like 8.1 miles on a 1S lithium-ion, single lithium-ion battery. So I am curious.
18650.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, if this is actually the longest one.
Wow. I mean, this is a 23-minute flight, so I don't think we're going to watch the whole thing. But
Yeah, he gets out there.
what's his video system? Is he using? Do you know if he's using 1.3 gig or what?
Yeah,
No.
he is using just a standard IRC Tramp Nano, I think, to get out there.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, TBS VTX antenna, IRC Tramp Nano. He does say 2.4 gigahertz long range receiver, so I'm not sure. Maybe that's not a complete.
Something doesn't add up there.
Yeah.
Maybe like he's using Ghost for his control link.
Check
That's a
his other
2.4
page.
gig long range. How
Yeah.
far out is he? Where's his distance to home? Round trip is 7 kilometers. Home is 5 kilometers away. Still pushing it. Says here he's on 400 milliwatts. This is an amazing range for 400 milliwatts. Just amazing.
Yeah, RX is on 100 milliwatts. VTX is on 400 milliwatts.
Looks like he's returning home. His distance to home is going down. I think we missed the turnaround point. Well, anyway.
Yeah, 6.5 kilometers there, I think.
There we go. He's still going home. Anyway, really, really impressive. And so, Blunty, you actually asked, maybe we should, man, we put this in a separate video, but maybe we should do a contest for the longest 1S flight. You know, what kind of requirements would you have? Does it have to be an 18650 or just any 1S build?
I think, I don't know, I think it would be fun to do any 1S build because I'm interested if you could get more out of a couple cells. You know, I think that might be the most efficient way to do it is a 1S lithium-ion battery like an 18650. So, I don't know. I would be interested to see if anybody could just get farther than 4 miles and make it back. I think the rule would have to be that you make it there and back on the same battery. So.
The other question would be, how do you validate? Like, for example, what if you had a 2S, but you used average cell voltage or you skewed your, what if they cheated? How do you keep them from cheating? Like, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of an honor thing. But I don't know.
Yeah, I am Rudy in the Discord wants to know if 18650s in parallel would be allowed. Yeah, that's the challenge, right? You can add more 18650s in parallel, but it's still a 1S, but you add weight and it may not be able to lift off. So does it have to be a multi-rotor? Can it be a wing?
I think it has to be a multi-rotor.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that we have to pick. Yeah, it can be any number of rotors if it works out better, but I think it's got to be like 2 or more, So like not a wing.
Maybe we'll think about the criteria and do a little contest, a little moonshot contest, see what people can do with 1S. It's pretty impressive. Isn't long range illegal? Aren't you BVLOS at this point? No comment.
Depends on how far I can see. Right?
I can see a tiny whoop 8 kilometers out. Yeah, no problem.
My spotter has really good binoculars and a track.
No, you can't use binoculars. It's not allowed.
His eyes. That's what I call
unaided eye. Unaided eye.
That's what I call his glasses or binoculars.
Okay. Congratulations to Catch 22 Mania. This is the longest 1S flight I've ever seen. Next up, researchers develop a method for meteorite recovery by drone. And Blunty, this one I think is interesting because it talks about the ways in which drones are being integrated into sort of weird and unexpected parts of everyday life. So in this case, the drone part is fairly pedestrian, right? The drone just flies a grid and takes a matrix of pictures. And then they're using AI to search for meteorite parts within those pictures. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting because it's actually been showing quite a bit of success. And this is sort of the, I don't know. It's hard to say, like, I don't know how to describe this the best, but like, I wouldn't have expected this to work because it's just drones flying over trying to like figure out what pieces of rocks are different than other pieces of rocks, I guess.
Yeah.
You
Like,
know?
like how do you know? Like the AI is really the impressive thing here, but it's not really drone related. How does the AI know that this is a meteorite and like not just a boulder? Right? No clue.
Yeah. And apparently that's because of AI. You know, that's because like a bunch of training and like learning and stuff, and it appears to work pretty well. So they go over like in an abstract paper we've linked, or in a paper we've linked in the abstract and everything else. They discuss like the prior work and how they set this up and how they did all the training algorithms and the success and stuff. So yeah, just a pretty cool little application of drones, and it does seem to be yielding some results.
Yeah, I've heard of similar things being used to search for, like lost hikers and stuff, that they'll put the drones up and the drones will fly in a grid pattern with automatic, infrared cameras looking for body heat or whatever. I don't know how it exactly works, but, this kind of thing, the ability to put small aircraft in the air in large quantities and have them fly autonomously has really, really interesting potential.
Yeah, pretty neat project they're doing there. So.
DQ. that's some funny shit. I'm not going to read it, but that's some funny shit. Well done, DQ.
So real quick, I just want to mention that Arabrat in the Discord brings up. We were talking in the Discord a little bit back and forth about elevation 400 feet and different rules and cases and stuff. A lot of people like to bring up the case he is U.S. versus Cosby. And about controlling airspace and assessing and stuff. And, from what I know from the legal professionals in the UAS world, Cosby's not a great case to go on.
Yeah. I always hear U.S. versus Cosby, who was also in court, and then I'm confused. No, Cosby, Cau. Cosby, there were two things that came out of Cosby, as I understand it. One of them was that property owners do not have property rights infinitely high above, which was the previous doctrine, was that you own the airspace above your property to the heavens and down into the earth. Everything was yours. And they said that you do not own it all the way up, but also the government, but you did have the right to use it within reason.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Something like that. Basically, the way that it worked out did not set precedent such that we own anything above our homes. That's my understanding of the U.S. versus Cosby. Like, it doesn't set new precedent to say that, like, there's any bearing for you to own any of the land above your home or, like, say, fly in it without the right of the FAA.
Right. It's confusing because Cosby did say that you have the exclusive right to use the airspace, but they also said that you couldn't prevent other people from flying through it, was the gist of it. That, like, if you want to put up an antenna, if you want to put up a tower, a deer stand, a sign that goes into the airspace, the government can't say, no, that's our airspace, you can't use it. But at the same time, people interpret Cosby to mean that you can prohibit the government from flying in your airspace, and that is absolutely, whether that's what Cosby said or not, that's not how the law is currently interpreted.
Right, and they also interpret it to mean that you own the airspace above your home and you can fly without a permit or without any FAA restriction, and that's also not the case.
Yeah.
I encourage anyone who wants to dive into that more or learn more about it or get the actual like law take on it, as the UAS Law and News Discussion group on Facebook.
It's a fantastic Facebook group.
And it's just an excellent group to learn about all this stuff. They have a lot of discussion. I'll actually put a link in the YouTube for that and in the Discord.
Okay.
But they do a lot of great discussion explaining like they've had hundreds of conversations about why Cosby doesn't apply and how it would apply to different situations and what people should know about it.
The reason that a lot of people who are in UAS law roll their eyes when someone mentions Cosby is that Cosby is like just one case, and there has been so much other case law and precedent, and the bottom line is that the way that the law is written and interpreted, more importantly interpreted today, Cosby is not the be-all end-all. And so people hear like the FAA claims to regulate the airspace down to the blades of grass, and they're like, nah, US v. Cosby, huh? And it's like, that's like saying you scored 3 runs in the second inning of a baseball game. Like, that didn't mean you won.
Yeah.
We're in like the 9th inning. It's been years. It's been whatever years. And there's a lot that's happened since then. So anyway.
All right.
Thank you for that. That's a good little interjection. We have one more thing today. The rant section. The ranty section.
The clickbait section.
Yes, the clickbait! Got to put that clickbait at the end so people stick around.
Yes.
What's our
All
clickbait,
right.
Blunty?
So Pawel Spagowski, you might know him, you might not. He is another FPV YouTuber that we've featured on the show a couple times before. And basically, he made a video saying the RC and FPV market is dead. And his caption was, "The FPV is a zombie." And so, basically, he went and discussed, a lot of the things, how he feels about where the hobby is at currently.
Yeah, and we're gonna address that claim and say what we think of it. But one of the things people asked is he just responding to his own analytics? His views are down, so he thinks everyone's are down. And to his credit, that is not what he did. So he used a website called Social Blade, which harvests stats from YouTube channels, and he looked at a whole bunch. Well, he looked at UAV futures, but he acknowledged UAV futures hasn't been posting as much, and his views are down. But he looked at a whole bunch. He looked at me. I'm going to show my stats a little later. He showed that a whole bunch of people's stats were down over the last year, and he made this argument that FPV is sort of dead or dying. Where do you want to take? What do you want to approach this from, Blunty? There's a lot of different angles.
Yeah. So, first of all, I would encourage, with anything like this, I would encourage anybody to go and look up this stuff on their own and listen to the video so they know the take that the person had. In addition, we've also linked XJET, Bruce Simpson's response to this.
Yeah.
He did a good response, kind of as a rebuttal / kind of add-on to the Pawel video, which I thought both were good videos to at least talk about the situation.
Yeah.
But basically, I think a lot of the gist was a lot of the views are down, a lot of the trends are down. There's not been a lot of innovation lately since DJI digital system happened. In addition to that, regulation and COVID have been pushing things down a lot. Well, that's not allowing any new people in the hobby.
Let's start with the innovation, because I was thinking about this in the shower before the stream as I was getting cleaned up. And he says that there isn't a lot of innovation in the hobby. And I think that he says it's, new motor, new flight controller, no innovation, not like the DJI FPV system. Now, I think obviously the DJI FPV system is incredibly innovative, but I feel like that is an outlier. And if you look at pretty much all of FPV, what has been a true innovation? Think about it. So let's start the timeline from when Blackout created the Blackout Mini Quad, which was the very first carbon fiber sheet with standoffs mini quad. It sort of set the mold for mini quads as we know them through to today. How many innovations have there been? We went from F1 to F3 to F4 to F7 flight controllers. We went from ESCs, Simon K, BL Heli, BL Heli S, BL Heli 32. Motors, got a little bit better designs. By that standard, there hasn't been any innovation in FPV pretty much ever, except for DJI, which is a total outlier. So I think one of the things he's doing is he's picking the most extreme outlier and saying because there hasn't been anything else that matched that there's no innovation, and that's just not true. It's just the innovations are smaller. Betaflight came out with filters, sliders. Betaflight has the RPM filter. There are all these innovations, little innovations that make quads fly better and make life better. He doesn't count them. He just writes them off. Yeah.
I'm going to have to agree with that. I think, if anything, I think maybe we're seeing a downtrend because we had kind of a DJI hump. We had a big push up in the industry, I think, from when DJI released and everybody got excited and there was a big trend of the industry. And then I think maybe we saw it trend back down a little bit after the hype of the drone launch and everything kind of teetered down, and we haven't seen anything new from the DJI system. We're just seeing camera revisions. There hasn't been a new VTX or new features or new updates in 8 or 9 months, that sort of thing. So I think that's part of what we're seeing. The other thing I would say is that I don't know that you can gauge everything by YouTube views. The world is changing. There's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's Okay,
Oh,
Twitter, there's whatever.
YouTube will be king forever. Shut up. Don't say that.
There's all these different things. Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, also I'll say, like, Bruce mentions a couple other pieces to this, which are like, regulation is pushing us out of public places, so people aren't going to be able to learn or experience FPV in the same way. But I think a lot of us, or at least I, and a lot of people I know, ended up experiencing FPV through online, through communities like this, versus like meeting people in real life who were doing FPV.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Bruce is, and I say this with love and respect and not the least bit of disdain, Bruce is from an older generation that got into flying through parks and local clubs. And I think kids today get in, a lot of younger people today get in through YouTube, and they're not so much out in the parks. So that's his perspective. Talking about innovation, people in the chat are talking about innovation. Like somebody said 4-in-1 ESCs were a big innovation. Yeah, 100%. And now we have toothpick all-in-one ESCs, or flight controllers. That's an innovation. The development of the 25mm form factor, I call that an innovation. The growth of the micro quad segment, really good 3-inch quads like the Tiny Trainer, the toothpick, the invention of the toothpick quadcopter by not by Bob Ruge, by people before him who should get a lot more respect than they do, and then he just stole everything they did and put his name on it. That son of a... All of these things I would call innovations, but especially because we're in the hobby, they don't feel as monumental to us. And then DJI comes along and they're like, hey, you guys, check this out. And we're like, oh my God, why can we not have this all the time? And we just don't. But
yeah.
Is there a downturn? Well, I put my numbers up. Let's take a look. And obviously I'm not reflective of the hobby as a whole, but do my numbers match Pawel's numbers that he showed showing a downturn? Well, here we've got daily stats. These are subscribers per video and views per video. And this is daily, which is a little hard to see the trends, but I've also got weekly here and then monthly. And this is going back to January 2018. So let's just look at monthly because I think it makes a little more sense. And we can see that in general, from 2018 to 2019, it was pretty flat. In 2019, it climbed. There was a big spike. Let's look at weekly again. There's a big spike around March to April or May of 2020 when the stimulus checks came out. In America, a whole bunch of people just got into FPV. So there was a big bump there. One of these is the DJI FPV bump. And then it goes down. But as you said, Blunty, it sure looks like there's been from 2019 to about early 2021, there's been generally an uptrend in my stats. And then it's a downtrend, but, can't go up forever. It's hard to judge. Especially, there we go. Especially because, we're in the middle of this weird economic global shipping manufacturing shortage thing. The whole economy is struggling. So why wouldn't FPV struggle too?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to I think it's just really hard to nail something like that down, especially in a pandemic, to know what the numbers are supposed to be and where everything should be trending. And it's hard to know that, especially for a niche hobby like this. One of the other things, though, I thought was interesting, and now I don't want to call anybody out, but I think it's a great example of what we're explaining here. And if you look, Pawel also has a video from 2019 I was able to find because someone else mentioned to me that it existed. And basically that Pawel video says this is the
2019.
2019, and he says this is where the industry is plateaued. We're on a downtrend, and this is what we can expect. The first world country has been filled up. There's no more people to do the hobby and all those kind of things. And just a few months after this, DJI released the biggest innovation that we've had in the hobby in a long time.
Well, and according to my stats, which is just one channel, 2018 to 2019 was roughly a plateau, and then 2019 through 2021 was growth. So right at the time, this was June 2019, right at the time that he was saying the hobby market has sort of maxed out, that actually was one of the biggest periods of growth I've personally ever seen. So
yeah, and so that's just kind of my example to say, I don't think you can predict an innovation. I think you can guess and hope and and whatever, but maybe nothing will happen. Maybe Orca FPV will come out with the best digital system we've ever seen that's completely open and super cheap and amazing and revolutionizes the, multiple things, not just the hobby. So
Yeah.
I think it's hard to know and predict these kind of things. We can look at trends a little bit, but I don't know that they're great examples because of the spikes and differences we've had so far.
I do, though, think that Pawel is right, and we're not just going to spend the whole time dogging on him and disagreeing with him. There's something that he's right about, and that the FPV hobby is currently in a decline. Not just because of my viewer numbers, not just because of the Social Blade numbers he showed, but I also talk to people who work at stores and sell FPV stuff, and they also say that the numbers are down compared to, say, a year ago when the numbers were pretty much universally up. And I think a lot of that, though, has to do, if you look at any industry, everything is out of stock. Cars are in a really weird place. Used cars are selling for tons of money. Dealers are having trouble getting new cars. Appliances, it's hard to get them. Everything is hard to get. So the fact that in FPV, everything's out of stock certainly isn't helping. I don't know what kind of trends we could extrapolate, though. If in 6 months or a year, everything's in stock again, I think we could just start going right back up. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that's our take on it.
Yeah.
I'm bullish on FPV. On FPV.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
I hope that stock shortages relax soon.
Yes, I think there'll be a big boom after the stock shortages end. And hopefully there'll be a lot of more opportunity for innovation and things because the chips will be available and people can pump out the things they want to and such. So,
yeah. Okay. Just Staying Cho says, and we talked about this before the show, but that another thing that might be affecting it is that people got into FPV during lockdown. They had a lot of time on their hands. They couldn't go anywhere. And they had stimulus checks in their pockets, at least in the U.S. And they were like, let's pick up a hobby. And some of them picked up FPV. And now that in the U.S. at least lockdowns are lifted, at least for now, a lot of people are like, all right, well, I'm not going to do FPV anymore. So we're seeing a dip. We'll see. But you just keep flying, right? I don't fly FPV. I flew FPV back when we were all flying, NAS 32 flight controllers and 2203 motors. And I'm going to keep flying it today, and I just like flying it. So there you go.
Just gonna mention real quick, because it's Dominic Clifton telling us this, who's a good source. He says F4s are out of stock until next year. F7's out still next year, or till next year? Not
till
sure
next year, probably.
And then H7's out till next year as well. So and he's the one who knows how to order that stuff and has the sources. So that's pretty unfortunate.
Maybe we'll finally see Betaflight move to a different processor. Express LRS released the EP processors because the processor on the PP was expensive. Maybe this will be the impetus for Betaflight to move to like an ARM chip or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, all right. That is going to do it for the news. I just have a couple more super chats to read. Ivan Efimov, thank you for a $5 super chat. Pawel did not count RPM filters as innovation because he runs them at 10 hertz update rate over the telemetry wire. Yeah. iNav's implementation of RPM filters is... Pawel argues that it's just fine. I'm not going to disagree with him here, but the Betaflight dev certainly would say that it was inadequate. I would call RPM filters an innovation. We'll call it, you know what? Let's throw a bone. Kalman filters, also a giant innovation. There we go. The Flight 1 and EMU Flight guys are happy. Newsins FPV, thank you for $5, says that the Rotor Risco is real. You have to go to... I'm not going to say a... Hang on. Let me make sure what's on this domain. No, okay. You have to go to rotorisco.com. That domain is available for sale. So if you would like to put up some trolling page for me to mention, by all means, go buy that domain. And Reckonson, thank you for a $5 super chat. He wants to pre-order the Rotor Risco. Again, the Rotor Risco doesn't exist. Thank you, Duck My Squee, for $5 New Zealand dollars. Sorry, Blunty, we got to keep reading them as long as they keep coming in. Next innovation, goggles with MHL module bays, not analog pins, digital modules. Need someone with real cash to fund, and this is the key, a use case outside FPV. Exactly. You need a use case outside FPV
that's
because
why
there's not enough money.
I think that's why a lot of us assume that if there's any chance for good stuff to come from somebody, it's like Orca, because Orca's got government contracts and is dealing in that world. So, though maybe now SharkBite will have that sort of thing too, pushing in that
Oh my
direction.
God! Oh my God, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Teal has government contracts, DoD contracts, and I mean, like, the government wants high quality, low latency. Surely they want FPV links. Maybe this will be the cash injection that Fat Shark needs. Oh my God, that's so exciting. That's actually really exciting.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens, of course, but yeah, that would be interesting.
Northern Tier FPV, thanks for $10 for beer money. And Louis P. Floyd, thanks for $5. I bought a lot to build with before the chip crunch. Hell yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Fingers crossed, guys. That's going to do it, though. Thank you so much, Blunty. Thank you guys for coming out.
Just a reminder, no news for the next 2 weeks. We'll be back. If you missed it at the beginning of the show, we will be back on the 3rd, I believe, of August.
Yes, sir. That's right. The 3rd of August.
But if you have any in the meantime, we'll probably have a big show to do on the 3rd of August because we'll have lots of news stacked up. So send all your news to news@fpvknowitall.com.
Bingo.
Yeah, and let us know.
All right. Yep. That is going to do it, though. I will see you guys. No regular JB live streams either, starting this weekend and going through the 1st of August. So I'll miss you, Blunty. I'll miss you and your glorious and Henry.
Yeah. See, no peace hiding. So.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Have a
later,
good night.
guys. Take it easy.
All right.